Very great pleasure to introduce Senator the Honourable Jenny McAllister, the Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Minister McAllister has been a champion for inclusion, equity and human rights, and her role is really critical in shaping policies that advance the dignity and wellbeing of people with disability. Now, we know that in order to mobilise disability research into policy and practice, that close relationships with the government and end users of research is needed. We're looking forward to the Minister's perspective on what supports the use of evidence in policy and practice by decision makers. So I think we have handing over now, Sue.
Sue speaking. Thank you, Minister. If you wanted to turn on your microphone, that would be great. I think you're still on silent, sorry.
I am. I've become so used to Teams that finding the Zoom microphone proved a little more challenging than I expected. Claire, thank you very much for introducing me, and I'm really looking forward to what I think is actually an incredibly important interaction potentially between the research that's being undertaken within the partnership and more broadly and government. May I acknowledge that I'm joining you this morning from Ngunnawal and Nandri country, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. And I extend that respect, of course, to all First Nations people who may be joining us here today. My name is Jenny McAllister and I am the Minister for the NDIS. I'm a woman with short hair, and today I'm wearing a black jacket with a gold button, and I'm sitting at my desk with a bookshelf behind me with some of the really beautiful things actually that have been given to me at different times in different roles by some of the people that I've met over the course of my work. So this week Parliament is sitting for the first time, the new Parliament, and it is very busy. But I did want to make time for this discussion. I've had a look at today's agenda and I am paired, just checking, the bells are ringing. I am paired and I can stay speaking with you. I've looked at today's agenda and I'm really supportive of the focus that you wish to bring on making the research that you do impactful. And I thought I could share with you some perspectives from a minister, but also actually from a person who formerly worked in the New South Wales Public Service on how research can shape policy. I have seen the way that good research can really inform government decision making. I've seen it in the climate change area, I've seen it in the prevention of family violence, I've seen it in the work around communities and what it takes for children to thrive. And it is very obvious to me that this partnership, done well, has enormous potential, not just for the NDIS, which is my immediate area of responsibility, but more generally for people with disability. I just caught the end of Jane Spring's excellent contribution, and I heard her provocation. And of course, it's responding to a core claim because for decades, people with disability have told policymakers nothing about us without us. And so as Minister for the NDIS, I've got responsibilities to ensure that the NDIS isn't done to or for participants. The scheme should be designed and overseen and implemented in a true partnership. People with disability, their supporters, their advocates, their family and their kin. And research is part of that. So high quality research that is either led by or developed by or both people with disability can really help decision makers understand what's needed. It can help us grapple with key questions that go to the heart of how we realise the rights of people with disability. And lots of those questions are actually very complex and they're very difficult to solve. They depend on understanding the bigger systems that impact on people with diverse abilities, disabilities, needs and aspirations. It's systems like the health system, the transport system, justice, housing, as well as disability services and supports. And so research can help us understand that complexity, but more importantly, it can tell us about what would make a difference if we wanted to improve the situation. And so disability-led research done well also raises the voices of people who would otherwise be marginalised or excluded, and it has the potential to create a dialogue between the different forms of evidence that should be relied upon when we're making our policies. And there is just so much that we can get done when this is all done well. There are lots of examples of where research has influenced policy, and so I'm going to hazard, and it's dangerous territory by naming just one, but Dr. Scott Avery's Culture is Inclusion was published just as the Disability Royal Commission was trying to understand the experience of First Nations people with disability. And Dr. Avery wove together individual testimonies with statistical analysis. And he was able to demonstrate in a profound and intelligible way the intersectional inequality that many First Nations people with disability face in cities, in regions, and in very remote communities. Now, in terms of tackling those issues, of course, we have a long way to go, but this was valuable research and it landed at the right time. I had a chance to meet with Mary and with Gillian a few weeks ago, and we talked about the opportunities for this partnership, particularly in informing my work and the work of the very excellent people that I get to work with in the agencies and departments that I administer. And I really want to invite you to think about the Commonwealth as a partner in this endeavour. That would mean engaging early with us and talking with us about what would help us to use your research. As policymakers, we are seeking out research that is grounded in today's reality and with a perspective on the practical recommendations that we can use to help move us forward. I'd also encourage you to engage with diverse perspectives, people with disability and lived experience, of course, but also with practitioners, with providers, with legislators, and with policymakers. You should reiterate the rights that are articulated in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and you should remind us of what the world could and should look like. You should challenge us, but also centre your research in the domestic, legal and policy frameworks in Australia now. Recognise constraints that exist and look for the practical steps that will help us move forward. And I think this last point is important, and it's something that Mary and Gillian and I talked about a bit when we met. Informing disability practice and policy means being really clear about the levers that are available to governments. So we commission services and we design pricing systems. We regulate the conduct of businesses and individuals. We directly provide services and information. And these are the levers that are essentially available to us to make change in this portfolio and indeed in many others. And so in my experience, governments really benefit when research engages with those levers, thinks about what would be necessary to scale what we know works at a small scale, and which levers we would need to pull to make that happen. So, for example, research that demonstrates what would work to deliver culturally safe services and supports in remote areas would help me think about how I could work with the NDIA, the department and state and territory colleagues to scale those ideas more broadly, for example, into the NDIS. So if you keep those factors in mind when designing and delivering your research, it would really help me as a minister, and it would help the Commonwealth more broadly to use your research and to really integrate it in the kind of policy making that we know that we have to do. So I am really glad. I understand you've had enormous response to the invitation for attendance at today's discussions, and I am really so glad to see the NDRP build momentum and be so well attended. I really encourage you to everyone who's online, to continue engaging with this Evidence to Action series, to build partnerships and to share knowledge. And I think that strengthening our collective understanding of the challenges we face and the solutions that are available to us, we really can improve outcomes for people with disability, both in the NDIS and actually much more broadly. So thank you again very, very much. I am very grateful for the invitation. I appreciate you being so flexible in the context of me being here on a sitting day and being so good about the timing. And I just really want to say thank you. And I really look forward to learning more about the research program and finding out reviewing some of your findings when they're ready. So thank you so much, Claire, and thank you to everybody who's joined us this morning.
Thank you so much, Minister McAllister, for the thoughtful and generous remarks, and for joining us today. I think it's pretty clear that you have a commitment to upholding the rights of people with disability and to using research to drive change, and that is deeply appreciated. We also value your leadership and the ongoing support for the National Disability Research Partnership, and also the commitment that you have to supporting our drive to build evidence that shapes better policy and practice. We also really want to gently acknowledge the broader context in which today's event is actually taking place. We know that many in our community are feeling unsettled and waiting to hear more about NDIS reforms and seeing what foundational supports outside the NDIS will provide. And we also know that there's a bit of uncertainty around how the Royal Commission recommendations will be taken forward. And I think those feelings actually speak directly to why the NDRP exists, because, as you said, when we embed lived experience and co-design and research into decision making, we really do help ensure that the reforms are more just and inclusive and effective. And honestly, that's why your contribution today really matters so much to us as a team, but also to the community. So we really want to thank you for joining us today on a very busy time. So yeah, thank you again. So I'm now going to hand back to Mary to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
And thank you to Minister from me as well.